Yeah, okay, cool. So we're being very agile at this work, so the MC reckons we can do the job of introducing ourselves. So we're going to do that. So the topic today is business, innovation, experiments, and agility. We're going to be very focused on business, and hopefully you'll see why. My name is Jakkris. I was in the oil and gas industry with ExxonMobil for 15 years, and I was with Roche Pharmaceuticals for a year. And right now I'm the freelance innovation consultant. And maybe you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Chaiyaporn, or you can call me Guang. I'm from ExxonMobil as an Agile coach. Used to be working with Pilek closely. Very close.
Okay, so this is probably going to be the coolest slide you guys will see, because it's got a lot of technology. But as I said, okay, see if I can get the clicker going. Not working for me. Sorry. Sorry about that. Maybe we'll just see it. Great, right, it's there. Okay. We're going to be very focused on business. And that's not to say that technology is not important. But I just feel that when you talk about innovation, experiments, and agility, so much focus is put on the technology, on the idea side of things. So we want to look at it from a different perspective. So the first thing is innovation. To give you some context, everything that I've shared today is based on the experience I've had in the past 3 years. I was given the great opportunity in ExxonMobil to, the problem statement to me was, we want to try and build a startup culture in ExxonMobil in a corporate way. What do we need to do? So I kind of thought the first thing I had to do some homework, right? I had to figure out, look, what is it that we're trying to do, and what is innovation? Where does it fit to in terms of agility and design thinking and everything else? There's so many things going on. And a couple of you probably seen this before. And this is just to give you an overview, right? This is by no means the official thing, but it's just one way of putting it. So if you really think about frameworks like design thinking, it focuses on the problem statement. You know, what problem are you trying to solve? Once you have some more definition, you move a little bit to the right-hand side to try and solve the problem. So you have some good idea on what problem you're trying to solve. You're trying different ways of solving the problem. Now, when you talk about innovation, it's probably a little bit on this side, on the far left. And there's so many frameworks to help you generate more solutions, more problems. Design thinking is just one of them. And I know Kun Warm is going to talk about service design a little bit later. But there's so many things, right? Disruptive strategy, blue ocean strategy, business model canvas, all these things. I won't have the chance to talk to all of them. I'm just going to touch a little bit on some that may be of interest to you. So today, my piece is going to be covering on the left-hand side, and then Chaiyaporn is going to focus a little bit on the right, on the agile implementation. So the first thing I did when Kun Riya asked me to try and spin up a startup team, I kind of thought, look back and say, like many corporations, we try to be innovative, right? We have all these things that a lot of you probably have in your company. The hackathon, the boot camp, the team building, the innovation day, the Shark Tank, right? And then we thought back, okay, look, how come we're not up there with Amazon and all these other companies? What are we doing wrong, right? We even have the beanbags, right? We tried everything. And how do we then become more agile as well as innovative like all these other companies? So there are 3 questions, right? What is innovation? It's the most basic question, but a lot of us take it for granted that we know what innovation is. Why are some companies good at it? Why are some companies really good at it? And how can we get there once we realize this? It's interesting because I don't know if we ever sit down and say, what makes a product innovative? And these are some of the companies that I hope will come up when you think about an innovative company. You have companies like Netflix, Airbnb, Uber, Amazon, and Tesla. Everyone familiar with at least 1 or 2 of the companies, I hope. And here are their different value propositions. So you've got Netflix, flat rate DVD, video streaming, right? Airbnb connecting homeowners with renters, Uber connecting cars to passengers, and so on. the question I want everyone to kind of think about is, how many of these actually had new technology associated with the value proposition? How many of them? This is my quick, non-scientific way of doing it. If you look at it, I mean, when Netflix started doing DVD delivery, the post was there, the web was there, logistics was there. Same with DVD streaming. Streaming technology was there, the internet was there. Airbnb and Uber, very clear example, And most recently, last week, you may have heard the news of the girls who started, connecting the rice farmer with the end user. When you talk about a lot of innovation, they did not invent anything new. What they did was connect different group of people to another group of people who didn't have access to the technology or to existing technology before. Now there's some, like Amazon or Tesla, which is very technological focused. But if you look at all the innovative companies, I would say less than half of them are actually successful because they invented something new. So, is innovation just about technology? This machine, I think a couple of you probably have seen this chart as well. If you're my age, you call it the Xerox machine. You walk around the office, it doesn't matter what brand it is. It doesn't matter if it's HP or Brother, you call it the Xerox machine. Because Xerox, the company that invented it, is so famous, right? They made a lot of money, and they're so famous because they found value for Xerox, the photocopying machine. These were also the companies, these were also the products that were invented by Xerox. You can take the QR code, there's an article there. So the forerunner to the PC, the mouse, the GUI, the Ethernet, the tablet, and the laser printer, all invented by Xerox. But they were not the company that found value for it. Some other company, and I think you guys can see, right? There was 3M, Microsoft, Apple, who actually found value for these technology. So with this reflection in mind, there is a statement that I'm going to make. For something to be an innovation, it must be novel and realize value. If it doesn't satisfy both of these criteria, it is not an innovation. So what that implies is ideas and invention by themselves are not innovation until they realize value. That's a very strong statement, right? I didn't make it up. From ISO 56002, Innovation Management. So it was launched in 2019. This is a course I took by Icon. You should see the same reflected if you take this course somewhere else. So with that in mind, the message here is when you talk about innovation, it is not about ideas. It is not just about technology. It's about how do you find the business value for these technologies and ideas. With that in mind, we take a little bit of a step back and say, why are some companies so good at it and why some are not good at it? For any company, whether you're a startup or a corporation, at some point in time, somebody has this great little idea. It's a tiny little yellow star on the left-hand side there. Somebody had a good idea, Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, John D. Rockefeller, if you're in the oil and gas industry, hundreds of years ago, somebody had a great idea. He or she would try and experiment. Many, many, many little red dots experiments that didn't work, right? All of these experiments, because if you try something new, chances are you're going to fail. There's no way you're going to get it right the first time. You're going to try and you're going to learn something from it. And then hopefully after some time you have some blue star that are promising. Some things that look, after 100 tries, maybe you get one that is promising. And then you find a product that the market wants, that somebody wants in the market. So when this happens, basically you've got an idea, you do a lot of exploration on the left, you filter these ideas into a couple of ideas that seems promising and seems to have market traction and everything else. The red ones are the failed experiment. The blue ones are the promising experiment, and then the green one is your money-making scheme, right? Now, when we look at this, I kind of look back and say, hey, so what does this picture look like in the real world? Because everything is theoretical here, right? And I know I've got our pharmaceutical colleagues here, so they might want to correct me. But in the pharmaceutical industry, when you try and do new drug discovery, you're trying to find one product, right? You pretty much go through the same thing, pharmaceutical research. You have molecular candidates, you have target discovery, formulation, lead optimization, and then clinical trials. Before you come, you have a product that comes out to the world, right? And when you move from left to right, you have increasing cost, customer value, and volume. You shift from exploration and testing into consistency, efficiency, scaling, and marketing. And this is probably a potentially controversial slide as well, because when you look at products, research, pharmaceutical research, there is zero marketing when you're looking at this side, because you don't know yet which product is going to make it to the end, right? But once you get to this side, you have some idea that these are in the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 trials. I think you only hear about it in the news when things make it into phase 2 and phase 3. Then you start looking at marketing, and you look at how do I make this consistently and efficiently. Number of cases, so I would ask my pharmaceutical colleagues to not give the answer, because I think you guys probably know better than I do. Any guesses how many molecular candidates there are before you can get one product? Just draw a number. 10,000. 10,000 is a good number. Any other thing, lower, higher? Okay, she's from the pharma industry, so she got it right out, bang on. So depending on the source, the number varies from 8,000 to 10,000. So I'm going to pause there a little bit. That means for one product, for a real experiment, there were roughly 9,999 that didn't work. So we're talking about 9,000 little stars, red stars that I showed you just now, to one product. Just mapping this now into what we have. So that gives you some idea that your red star, if you're truly doing an experiment that no one has done before in this world, about 9,000. We don't need to go that far. I think a couple of hundred would be a good number. The other thing that I also want to point out is, what do you do once you find the green star? If you found a product that somebody wants, you can make money out of it, what do? You replicate, right? You replicate, you make more green star. You can make the green star in Bangkok. You want to make sure that you can also make money in the States. You can also make money in Europe. You can also make money in South America. You replicate, and this is when you start focusing on consistency, efficiency, marketing. But guess what? Once you have the green star, other people also see the green star, and they are going to copy you. Once you're successful, your competitors are going to come. If you build an app, your competitor is going to build the app. If you build a line group, your competitor is going to build line. In the age of digitization, I think I talked about it last year, it's so much easy, so very easy to copy stuff. So once you have a success formula, other people are going to copy you. So how do you compete? This is what we call the red ocean strategy, right? You compete on price. If you can offer the same thing, your competitor can offer the same thing, who is the cheapest? That's where you and I would go and buy the product, right? If everybody is copying the same. So what do? You have to go back to the beginning. Your company have to reinvent yourself. You have to find the next new product. I mean, you think about this, Netflix has done it a couple of times. They disrupted Blockbuster. They're here now, and then they're in this space. They've been very successful in streaming, but now they've got what? Apple, Disney Plus, right? Everything. Now they're in the red ocean. Now they need to find what's the next money generator for them, and then scale it up again. So this thing is a cycle. It's a corporate cycle. So if you're a fairly young company, maybe like Netflix, you've gone through this a couple of times. Some companies, some industry are a little bit more resistant to this. But at the end, it's not a question of why some companies are good at it. If you look at it, what most corporate innovation team focus on is on this side. Why? Because most corporate innovation teams are really good at scaling. Scaling efficiency, we can replicate this all over the place. We can scale. Startups are really good at exploration, testing, learning, and de-risking. But you know what they're really bad at? Scaling, right? If you look at Tesla, they can't make enough cars. So what we're trying to do is when you talk about corporate innovation, I don't focus on this at all. Because you know what? 99% of corporate innovation is already doing this really well. So what we try to do is, okay, how do we build this up? How do we do more experiments? Now you're going to ask, okay, look, my company is pretty good. We do a lot of experiments and everything else. What we find is, also is, and I think some of you are familiar with this tri-circle: value, desirability, and feasibility. Most companies, corporation, when we do experiments, we focus very much on this side. What does that look like? It looks like your boss and your executive coming to you and say, hey, we need to do blockchain. Somebody has done VR. We need to do it as well. We don't know why. We assume the market wants this. But we need to do it because our competitors are doing it. You're in this game now, where somebody somewhere heard somebody else doing it, so now you're just going. So you're not questioning the need. You're just experimenting for feasibility. Your experiment is on whether or not you can do this, not whether or not you need to do it. So that's one thing. The other thing also is our number of experiments. So when I look back and I said, how many experiments do we have? For every solution, we probably had about, I don't know, 2 solutions, 2 alternatives that we look at, 3 alternatives. So the question I asked myself, okay, look, the pharmaceutical industry is talking about 9,000. How do we do more experiments cheaply and faster, right? So how do we do it? And there's a lot of content here. This is some of the findings that I found. I'm just going to go through them, but I will share with you some of the focused learning on a few of them. So when you talk about solution broadening, so if I share with you just now, like the boss comes to you and say, we need to implement blockchain. That's a solution-focused experiment because whatever you try, you're going to roll out blockchain. It doesn't matter. You're going to roll out blockchain in Thailand and maybe scale up to Singapore and then maybe in AP and then to America. So your experiment is actually focused on the solution. To focus on the problem, you need to ask your boss, why do we need blockchain? Is it because our security is bad? Is it because there's no trust in the system? That would be a good reason to use blockchain. You know, you need to shift the conversation from solution-based to be problem statement-based. And I'll share with you some of the examples here. Jobs to be done is one way of doing that. I'll share you an example as well. More experiments, more hypothesis-driven experiment, and then I will share with you a project innovation matrix that is, you know, more popular and appropriate for experimental innovation type of project. Action-focused experiments, I'm going to share that with you as well. Entrepreneurship is interesting because when you talk about entrepreneurship, the one thing I learned is everybody wants to be entrepreneurial. But there's one thing that every company, a lot of company misses, you know. No matter what I do, if my boss gives me money and say, hey, Jakkris, run this, I don't know, 1 million baht project, and I fail, I can be entrepreneurial, but if I fail, I still get paid. I still get my salary, right? So that makes it very difficult because the money that I spend is not mine. So one of the challenges is how do you build that culture where you value people's time and investment like your own money, really. If you fail, you're going to lose money. That makes it very different. So if you really think about it, this is one of the key things. And the last one, also controversial, spinning off entity. A lot of companies would say spin off. I was never convinced why you need to spin off until probably about a year ago. I read this book. It's called The Innovator's Dilemma. And that's one reason, profit formula. If you're a company like Blockbuster that always make money by late fees, that's your profit formula. You measure everything, success or failure, by late fees. So when something like Netflix come up that has nothing to do with late fees, it gets killed because you are not used to this. As long as your performance and your profit formula stay the same as the existing company, whatever innovation you have is not going to survive. So with that, I want to share with you these 3 things, jobs to be done, more experiments, and then some action-focused experiment example. Some tools. You're probably familiar with this, how might we? I have a love-hate relationship with how might we, for the simple reason that it doesn't translate well in Thai. When we say how might we and we don't really know what it means. And then it's so easy for people to just tag how might we in front of a question and then expect that, oh, magically it's now innovative. I've been in a meeting where there was high-level management and they said how might we, I don't know, like about 50 times within 1 hour. I walked away and I was like, I've never heard somebody said how might we so many times, so all over the place. So there's an alternative, and when you see this, you're going to think this includes persona and takes into account some of the user journey. It does, but the intent of this is so that we're very honest with ourselves. So instead of using how might we, you use this thing called as a ... help me to do something. So this is actually in a book by Clayton Christensen. It's called Competing Against Luck. He talks about the jobs to be done theory. Let me give you an example why this is helpful. How might we increase car sales in Thailand through a network of resellers, assuming you are selling cars? It's very easy to put this how might we statement. You can argue and discuss whether or not it's a good statement, who are you doing this for, right? But if you put it in as a ... help me to increase car sales in Thailand through a network of resellers. Who are you doing this for? It's very clear, right? If you put customer there, as a customer, help me to increase car sales in Thailand through a network of reseller. It becomes very obvious because as a customer, why would I care? The only person this makes sense for is the company. As a car dealership, help me to increase car sales in Thailand through network of resellers. And the reason I do this is because we are so very focused, everybody is focused now on customer centricity. We say we do everything for customers, but we come up with how might we statement that looks very specific and questionable. So this is like a test, a quick test to put your how might we statement to test, to kind of see who are you actually doing this for. Next piece is experiments, which you're all familiar with. So going back very far when I did experiments in high school, there's a couple of basic things that you need to have with experiments. You have a hypothesis. This is what you assume, right? You have expected observation. You must also have a success criteria. How will you know if something succeed or fail? I've been surprised and not surprised at the number of times people come to me and say, hey, we want to build an app. And then I ask, okay, look, if we launch this experiment, how will you know if it worked or not? What number are you thinking about? Do you think if we have 20 users, that's a good number? If you have 100, if you have 1,000? And it's important to put down a number because you know what happens if you don't. You will, whatever the number comes out, you will say, that looks a good number. Let's go ahead anyway because the boss tells us we need blockchain. To do an experiment, you should have a success criteria. And the other thing also is you shouldn't test multiple things at the same time. You have an app that does 20 things. You roll it out. You test it out. You won't know what worked and you won't know what wouldn't. So you have to break down the experiments into smaller experiments. You have to test each of the assumptions to see whether or not it works. And I'm going to give you some example because this is quite a challenging area to kind of visualize. To help you with this, there's this very simple card. You can scan, you can take it out from Alex Oswalder book. So it basically said, we believe that this is the case. We believe that users want this. To verify, to test it, we're going to do this, and we're going to measure something, and we are right if this is true. This is the test card. What's more important is the learning card, because chances are you are going to be wrong. We thought that was going to happen. We observed that, and then from this we learned that, and therefore we're going to do something. So what do we test for when we test for these things? What are we testing for? We test for action. What do I mean by that? Surveys are great, but talk is cheap, and action speaks. What that means is I don't know, Zach, I said, hey, Zach, that was let's get together and talk because you think my talk is so great. Zach said, yes, great. And then maybe he goes quiet because he was just being nice to me. How do we get action? The action from Zach for me would be something like, okay, maybe I talk to your boss next week. and Zach said, okay, that's a good idea. He's made a commitment. And to me, that's a good commitment, right? We want to make people do something when you do the experiment. So the experiment that I like to give is a chatbot test. So your boss comes to you and then you say, I want to build a chatbot. How do you experiment with a chatbot? The next question is, what are you actually trying to test with a chatbot? There's so many things, right? You could assume that there are so many people missing from work, you want to kind of replace the people at work. You can assume that there's people who's going to call you after hours. That's one of the things, right? You want to be able to support your customer 24/7. That's one of the assumptions, right? That if we roll out a chatbot, we can support the customer. So how do we verify this? And this is when the sense of entrepreneurship comes in. I am not going to build a chatbot. I'm going to hire a couple of people to pretend to be a chatbot. Okay? Because what I want to test is whether or not people are going to call 24/7. What am I going to measure? So I would say I hire people to come and advertise it and say we now have 24/7 support. We're going to run this pilot for a month, and you see the numbers. How many people actually call after hours? And we are right, and you just put in a number that you think is right. Maybe it's 100, and there's no way you're going to get it right? You run this experiment, and you will find either here, we observe, you will find two things. That's only two things you're going to find. You're going to find there's nobody. Nobody call if you run this experiment and you get like 5 people call over a month. Or you get 500. That's evidence. That's action. That tells you that, 500. Good. Let's build a simulation of a chatbot, maybe invest a little bit further. But with all innovation, there are 3 keywords that you need to know: persevere, pivot, or kill. So you have experiments. You have the result. Now you have to decide, what do you do? Persevere is like, okay, look, this is worth scaling. Try it. Let's try a little bit further. Pivot is maybe you find, I thought people would like this, but we found that there was another group, different group, that actually enjoyed this feature. So you pivot and then you try and do something else. Kill is just, this is it. Any guesses? What's the hardest thing to do here and what's the easiest thing to do? Kill is what? Hard? Easy? Kill is the hardest. Kill is the hardest because, persevere is easy for corporate. You know why? Because we all have center of excellence, right? In the corporate environment. We can keep trying, we can keep trying, we can keep trying, right? And we don't quit. That actually is good for the corporate innovation, but very bad if you want to be like a startup. You have to kill things that you don't see signs, or you decide to do pivot. You shouldn't keep persevering. So, with this in mind, once you've got a couple of experiments going, you should be able to put together a couple of hypotheses, a summary. These are all the experiments that you have. And guess what? most of the action should be kill or pivot. Because if you've tried something that no one has done before, you should be encountering more failures, just like in the pharmaceutical product, more failures and more success. So if you try this out and everything is green, you're probably trying something that we already know to be successful. You're not really experimenting. So we did this. I did it when I was in oil and gas. I did it again also with the pharmaceutical industry to try. I had to, discuss it. I can't share the details, but we basically did 15, experiments, which is a good start from like the 2 or 3 we were doing. And you will see that it's roughly incremental cost. There's a couple of things where we had to retest and kill. So if we have time, we can talk a little bit about the type of experiments. But I think this is my last slide. Guang, you want to? So that's it for the experiments. If we have time at the end, we can discuss a little bit more examples. So I'm just going to hand over now to Guang for the agility. So I've just covered business innovation, business experiments. Once you have the experiments that have promise, then you want to go ahead and execute.
Thank you. Okay, my slide now. Hi everyone, again I'm Chaiyaporn. I would like to cover about the business agility. But before I start, I would like to ask everyone to get more engagement. What do you think about the business agility? Can anyone yell it out loud? What it is? No right or wrong, just answer me. Yes?
Being able to adapt to what the customer needs at a shorter time.
Adapt to customers. What else? Speed to market. Okay. What else? Whoa. Okay, then I need to present. I can step down. You got it now. The first one is get a business operate with a growth mindset first. We need to have the growth mindset, not a fixed mindset. We need to, when you got something new, you need to unlearn what you learned before. Relearn, right? This is to help you understand where you are, what is your weakness, what is your strength, then you can improve. Okay, and next one, monitoring change within the marketplace and preparing to adapt accordingly. Because we sense the market, what's going to be, what the future look like, and then you try to adapt, right? The last one, the ability to quickly adapt changing needs for customer and employees. I mean this one, not only the customer, because sometimes we focus too much on the customers and we forgot our own employees. What can happen? The team might fail, they don't trust each other, right? So we need to balance for the customer and our team to ensure that, okay, we can deliver the value to our customer. Okay? I would like to highlight 3 key components to build the business agility. Starting from the culture, we should have the kind of adapt to change, like you mentioned before. Everyone know that. Try to build based on, okay, we create a safety environment for people to test, and then the process, the fail fast process, how we can ensure that we can do the cheap experiment, how we can fail, how we can learn from failures. We allow people to get fail, but not too often, right? Because if you keep failing the same thing, that's not you learning from feedback on failures. You're just, doing the same thing, and you expect the different result. That's not good. And the last one is execution. How can you adapt to change? How can you sense when the change coming in? How you can integrate those changes? How you can execute them? This would be the 3 key areas that I would like to highlight. Starting from the culture, okay, adapt to change, the process, fail fast, learn from failures, learn from feedback, and then execution, integrate those changes, right? Okay, that's good. For the business agility, I would like to give you example how ExxonMobil or ESSO try to be involved with the people, because we believe that a great idea can come from anywhere. We used to focus a lot on our internal employees. We build a lot of hackathons like Pilek mentioned. But right now we try to expand. This just happened a few months ago. for ESSO Open Innovation Hackathon. This is the first time that we engage with the entrepreneurs, the students, the startups, try to solve and create the experience for our customer. And we got the 3 winners in here. I would not focus too much on ESSO Hackathon, but I would like to highlight how we do experiment in the gas station. When we got the ideas, we got the winners. We got like 10 candidates to join this event, and we got 3 winners. And then we did not select those winners and put it into the production. We tried to test those ideas in the gas station to prove that there is really the desirability. There's really have the traffic. Because sometimes it's based on assumption that, oh, there's going to be a lot of traffic in the ESSO station nearby the market, right? But that's just assumption. We're not sure that it's the truth. So we try to give the chance to those teams to explain and test and observe the area. Okay, if you are looking for me, I'm here. In the blue suit. Okay. Oops. Okay. I would like to highlight this one that when we try to build anything, you should start from why. Why you do it. Why business needs to do it. If you don't know why, you might just do something that no value at all, because even yourself don't know the why. And then you focus on who. Who is your customer? Who is your target customers, right? And then you try to build what it is. What you're going to deliver to your customer. What's a value proposition for yourself as a company and the team that's going to help you, or the startup or the entrepreneurships like ESSO Hackathon. What's the value proposition for us and for the startups? And how you do it. Did you really do the cheap experiment? Because sometimes you just, okay, I would like to buy RPA, robotic process automation, because we just want it. Adopt it. What's the impact for it? How much cost that you need to invest? How much, the people that we need to let off, what's the impact afterward? So you need to balance, right? And the how as well. So this would be the circles that I think is kind of important and relate back to the DVF that Peter just mentioned, Disruptive Viability, and then Feasibility for this one. Okay. And I have another example of how ExxonMobil built the business agility in the organization. We try to build the cultures not from only the top down or the bottom up. We try to build it from both ways. Okay, the top down we try to let them understand, the portfolio team understand. Okay, what the agile is, what the important, why we need to do it, and the people at the bottom, like delivery team, what's their responsibility for the product owner, the Scrum Master, the release train engineer, what they need to do. Okay, we groom them and provide them a lot of agile class. Even they train it, but where they groom the new team, we did the agile refresher training to let them having the same understand. Because sometimes I learn from this guy, they learn from another guy. They don't have the same understanding, but we groom them together in one training for any team. Okay, and then we also encourage people to share their skills. Because sometimes people in the team think that the skills itself is sensitive information. They should not know my skill. Like we have 4 levels in the circle, in the quadrant, right? For the first one, okay, you just know the word. The second one, you may, hey, I cannot share yet, but I know I can contribute. The third one, okay, I'm a bit master. The fourth one is, I can train people. They share. Once they share the information, we create a transparency in the team. And then we know that who we can go to. We create a go-to person for each area. And we can build, okay, this is the main skill that most of the people would like to learn. Okay, and then they're starting to share. And there's no more secret. We just share. And this skill is not impact the performance. This is the key. Because when sometimes we share and it impacts the performance, it's not going to happen. The value is not going to create at all, right? You need to keep it as transparency. We encourage people to learn. This is a learning organization. And the next one is a reorganization. With the organization, it could not happen. So we try to build and create a portfolio team at the top level, like the 5 level that Klaus just mentioned. Okay, and then we create the middle level, the second level for the 5 level that they mentioned, the program team. And the first level is a delivery team. Okay, this is the 3 level that we got. Okay, from Epic, the feature, and the user story level, this is the organization that we create. And we shift from project focus or the operation support focus to the product focus. Products could mean not only one application, it could be like product family in the same family. So how should we invest in those areas? We just focus by product. So we combine the operation and project together. Okay, it seems to be no question. And we try to encourage learning from failures. Okay, so this is a key. And how can we build the trust in the team? Because sometimes it is very easy to say, hey, let's create trust in the team. Let's create transparency in the team. The real truth is that it's not that easy, right? Trust cannot just be created by word. Or the boss say, hey, you need to have trust with your product owner or the Scrum Master. This is your your new team coach. Can you say that and people gonna believe? It's not. It takes time, right? Because everyone knows that Agile is a journey. And it's not a magic. It needs time to build. You all need to learn from failure and you need to let the team fail. If you don't encourage the failure and you blame people, it's not going to happen in the Agile journey. Just let them fail. Sometimes, even you know the answer, let them be familiar with it. And it should be in the safe environment. Okay? Good. Then let's hear from the key takeaway from our session today. Business innovation is not just idea and technology. Invention alone would not be innovation until you deliver the value. Then it becomes innovation. And the experiment, you should experiment more, faster, and cheaper. Include the fail faster, like I mentioned before, but in the process. And the last one, agility through trust. It's not easy, but I believe you all can do it. Okay? Okay, if you like to know more about us, you can reach us through this LinkedIn. This is our resume today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I like the word that the ideas or the invention is not the innovation until it creates the value. So this is, I think it is important because most of us, sometimes we think that innovation need to be the technology or the new things all the time, right?
Right.
Yeah. So anyone have any questions for both speaker here? ค่ะ
Okay, as you mentioned, learn from the failure, right? I like to know that normally people want to share the success. Normally people don't want to share the failure. So what are the key drivers for them to sharing the failure and learn from the failure?
This is the one that's very important. How can we create? We used to have in the track, we share too much on the success, like you mentioned. But let's say one example, like safety in our company, we try to share the incident. It's not good to share, right? But we create the culture that incident is good to share because people can avoid the incident in the future. It's the same as the mistakes, why the project failed, why the team failed, why trust cannot be created. How did you overcome it? We share this one in maybe using the retrospective.
So I think maybe you want to share the example that we did for the startup team as well. So when we first started the startup team, we were very focused on 2 projects. We were very, very focused that customers want faster service, for example. And the only thing, we kept trying different variation of faster service, but it didn't work. So what we had to do was I said, throw it to the team and say, hey, guys, would it help if instead of I ask you to be successful, I say we want to do 20 failures in the next 3 months. I don't care how you do it. I don't care how we do it. Let's see if we can try something different and come up with 20 failures, because we seem to want to push for success. I'm going to flip this around and see, I don't mind what you guys want to do. Try something different, fail, fine, let's move on to the next one. So if you make that the measure of success and then make the cost of failure really, really small, because you will see that some of the costs we did was 5,000, 10,000 baht. On the overall scheme of things, that's a small experiment that you can basically come and say, okay, that didn't work. Helps you to move on to the next experiments.
Okay, thank you.
We can talk a little bit more if you have questions.
Any
more
other questions?
คะ I have พี่ต่อมี So for the experiments in the organization, how can you convince the management to do more experiments? Because most of management may think that, okay, the idea is that, so do it and see it.
Yeah.
Very fast. Yeah. How can we convince them?
So I think it's important to, when the conversation that I had with my management in both pharmaceutical and oil and gas is to be very honest and ask them, do you want us to try something new? Right? And I'm very stressed. I really stress the word new, because I tell them, if you say we're doing something new, no one has done it, including you. That means no one has done it. The only way you're going to find out whether or not it works is to try it out. If you can tell me right now it's not going to work, then it's not new. Because you're saying that you've done it before. It's a tough conversation, but I've been surprised by management who is actually, oh, you're right. So I'll shut up now. You guys go ahead and do it. But I think just setting, what do you mean by new? Do you mean the same new as me? I think that kind of helps the conversation.
Okay ค่ะ Thank you. Any more?
Yes.
ใครคะ Oh.
When you say innovation, do you make the difference between innovation like for human being
Yeah.
and innovation for the company? Maybe we'll tell you this is innovation for us. We never
Yes.
did it.
Yes.
And how do you position yourself?
So I think that as a ... thing, when you talk about, and I'm being probably too honest, when you talk about efficiency, improvement, and things like that, making things faster and better, automation, chances are you are doing it for the company. Unless you're passing on that saving to the consumer. Because who benefit if you can process transaction 50% faster? The company, right? As a consumer, I don't care. I don't care if you use SAP or Salesforce or whatever. I just want the cheapest stuff. So I think you can be very honest. The only thing, though, is, as I shared with you, if you focus only on the red ocean efficiency, you're not going to create differentiating stuff because people are just going to copy you, right? So I think it's important to kind of do both things. You can be doing 90% of efficiency, but you should have some small teams that's looking for the true experiments. Okay. No questions. The reason I put this photo down is a test. If you're really doing experiments, it should be very messy. Should be very messy. So if the experiments are very clean, successful, you're probably not really experimenting. That's the last thing I've got.
So one last question for me is again for Kun Chaiyaporn about the business agility, because now the new normal situation, we are work from home. What is the most challenge for you and your team to create this kind of agility in your organization?
I think the key challenge is the communication, that how we can communicate with people without seeing each other face to face. We used to be in the office and we just go to another table, the friend's table. Hey, do you have any issue? Had any problem? We don't have that kind of like touch environment that's seeing face to face, but we try to block some time to catch up, meet up with them more often than before, so that we understand each other more. Because sometimes when they struggle and you don't have trust created yet, you should set up frequent meeting with the team, with the coaching people, like you can group just one-on-one or maybe POSM and with the coach so that you can build some trust. And then they can leverage those to their teams.
Okay, thank you. So I think it is create the culture in the organization is quite challenge for us right now. Okay, thank you very much for พี่เล็ก and คุณชัยพรคุณ
กวางครับ
กวาง
กวางครับออกเสียง